Well, I confess that this wasn't the final semester that I had thought and that I had planned on. Um, and, we've had in the world and the community and certainly at the college, remarkable disruptions. In actually a 10-day period, we had to move all our courses to distance learning. We had to move 1,100 students off campus. We moved the entire staff to remote working. And we did that in 10 days. It felt like 10 years. But, I tend to see the glass as half full. And there are at least two bright spots when we had to do all this. And one was, I really did see the Nazareth community at its very, very best. We came together as a community. We did very difficult work in a short period of time, but we did it together and did it in a way that really preserved the best possible academic programming for our students. And the other bright spot, quite frankly, is Beth Paul. Transitions from one president to another can be very awkward, as you might imagine. But in the last month, I've had a chance to work very closely with Beth. We've talked probably at least twice a week. She's been very involved in our thinking about the future. And so a real bright spot for me, and I mean this seriously, is that I am so hopeful about the future under her leadership.
Thank you. I feel the same. I have to say, I am so amazed by this community, and I knew it. I knew it before, but when you start seeing it in action, when you start feeling it and observing the strengths that come forward in times of great challenge, you know what the soul of an institution is. That's what you see. And I am just so moved by what this community has endured, but also what this community has created in the last 5-6 weeks. It's really, truly awe-inspiring. And you can see the prioritization of the student, the prioritization of every student, the prioritization of their vibrancy and their success through the entire community. It's really quite awesome. And I have to say, I agree 100% with Daan to have a partner and a partnership as respectful and as, really just a wonderful collegial relationship. I feel so honored and I feel so fortunate. So it has been a really wonderful several weeks amidst a tremendous challenge. And that says a lot about the resilience of Nazareth.
Yeah, I like to say that historical moments are defined not so much by the crisis, but by how you respond to it. And I think what we saw here is an amazing, amazing institution responding to a horrible crisis.
Agreed.
We are planning and moving forward with the hope that we can reopen in the fall. We're looking at 4 different scenarios. One is, probably the most likely, is that we'll be able to reopen, but we'll have some kind of social distancing restrictions. We'll have some testing requirements. But we're also looking at the possibility, which I really hope does not occur, that the state will tell us we can't open. We're also looking at another alternative, which might be to, delay the calendar some way. And finally, there's the real possibility that if we do open sometime later in the fall or winter, early winter, there might be a resurgence. So, hope is not a strategy. And so we're being very careful about looking at all the alternatives. Hope, and we're planning to be here and open in the fall.
I certainly agree. I concur. We are very much on the same page about this. I don't think of it as opening and reopening. I think of it as we are full speed ahead with the mission and the learning experience of Nazareth College, and we will make it work whatever way we have to make it work. There are constraints. There are realities within which we are all having to live. And as Daan was saying, wow, I mean, unknowns and unknowables. And so we will have to be very flexible. We will have to be very versatile. We're going to have to be really creative, like we are over the last several weeks. But we are full speed ahead. We are looking at a fall full student experience, as full as we can make it, and in as creative a way as we can make it. I certainly hope, oh gosh, do I hope. I can hardly wait to greet students face to face, one by one, as they return to campus. I can hardly wait to do that. And that is my absolute hope, that we'll be able to do that. And we will look for ways to be able to do that within the constraints that our world gives us.
What we've done specifically is we put together a committee of faculty and staff to look at each one of these alternatives and then develop plans for how we ensure the very best academic programming, how to ensure the health and safety of our students and our faculty and staff, and also how do we ensure that students can be as engaged with the college as we want them. So within each one of those scenarios, we're looking at very specific planning, again, with the hope and intent that we will be here on campus. You know, I always love spring on campus because there's a natural rebirth that goes with spring, and especially on our campus when all the flowers are blooming, the trees are out, it's spectacular. And you know, I miss seeing all the students wandering around. I miss seeing that rebirth, but we'll have that rebirth in late August, is my feeling.
I sincerely hope that as well, and look forward to that. I have to say, I'm very impressed by the process that has been put in place. And, you know, the beauty of a community like Nazareth is that there are many, many different perspectives and different minds and creativity of all sorts. And the more people we can get involved in informing all of the ways that we can move forward, the better. And it's a very collaborative process that's been put in place, and I think that bodes well for our ability to do this work. One of the things that draws me to Nazareth, and frankly that draws me to higher education, is the role of higher education in our community and in the fabric of our society. And I believe very, very strongly that we have such an obligation to create the future, to create the people who will be sewing that fabric of our society and that will address the feelings of community and the strengths of community going forward. And that's what we do with each and every student. And that absolutely drew me to Nazareth. It is a founding strength of Nazareth. And it's been fun to look back in the history and to watch how that strength has grown over time and how it has developed. Certainly in Daan's time, I know we share this commitment to see the role of Nazareth in social justice and in community capacity building. It's really a beautiful element. It also means that the campus community needs to be living the values that we're trying to lead and create in communities near and far. And that is challenging. It's challenging wherever we go. Creating community in this world full of division and divisiveness, it's really hard work. And we need to be focused on that on campus as well. And that's the other thing that draws me to Nazareth, is the willingness to do that, the recognition that that's a really important part of this learning experience. It's hard work. It is not for the faint of heart, and many institutions don't step up to the challenge, and Nazareth is. And so I'm excited to come to a community that is that committed and to join in that effort. That's a strength that is quite beautiful in our times.
I could not agree more. I've often said that one of the most important things for higher education is to prepare our students to live and work across lines of difference. I mean, we see around the world all kinds of differences, and we see that too often it's used to divide people. And in my view, all that difference is a strength, and we need to educate students about it. We need to prepare students to live and work in that world. And as Beth points out, it's not easy. It's hard work. and it's against a a backdrop of things going on around the country, around the world. But higher ed has to be committed to it. It has to, because if we're not, then we're going to just continue along the paths that we see going on. And I want to also emphasize one other thing that Beth said about our commitment to the broader community. This is, I think back 15 years ago, actually, and one of the things that attracted me to Nazareth was the fact that it is so engaged in the community and that it's part of our genetic makeup. And, when I look back at 15 years, one of the things I'm most proud of is our Center for Civic Engagement, the work we've done there, the national awards, the recognition we've won for all that work. And I want to underscore that the reason it's important is not simply because these partnerships with the community benefit the community. They benefit our students in so many ways. I mean, they give students an opportunity to take what they're learning in the classroom and apply it in the real world. They expose students to issues that many of them have not seen, issues of race and issues of poverty. And it also prepares them to be global citizens when they leave the college. And I think that's important. And I am really confident that when our students leave Nazareth, they will take back to whatever communities they go to a commitment to community service. And I think that's really an impressive part of the Nazareth education. I'll let Beth respond since she's going to be leading.
What an interesting time in which we are living. On the one hand, we are more one world than we have been in a very long time, I think. And in another way, we are so separate right now. And I think of this time as an opportunity to reflect on what community means. And I think of it as social fabric. I really like the metaphor of a fabric for talking about what community is, because community is made up of all sorts of people, and that's really the beauty of humanity. But we don't do very well, frankly, in that beauty in humanity. We just don't do very well at it. And I think this time in which we're living is giving us an opportunity to reflect on that. And we have an opportunity with the values and the history and the strengths that Daan has talked about. We have an opportunity to lead that. We have an opportunity to come together as a community, as a college community, and say, let's be part of defining what we want to come out of this as social fabric, because I think it's going to take some intentional effort. And I think a learning community, the students that are front and center of our consideration, our concern, take these values everywhere they go and to build community everywhere they go. What an opportunity to impact our society right now. So I see us having conversations about what we think social fabric, healthy social fabric needs to be and needs to look like. And then how can we be weavers of that social fabric? What do we need to learn? What do we need to grow? How do we need to think? What capacities do we need to develop? What new skills do we need to develop? And then how do we go out and do it? And to me, that's a very, very powerful, positive impact that can come from this time.
There's a writer, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, wrote a book, and the title of it, I think, captures this so well, what Beth's talking about, and that he calls it the dignity of difference.
Right.
And what we need to instill in not simply our students, but in ourselves, is a recognition of the dignity of difference. And that, I think, higher education must embrace.
There is so much about Nazareth that speaks to me. We've talked about a lot of it. The commitment to community, the commitment to engaging our students in becoming global citizens is so powerful. The commitment to weaving together the different ways in which learning can be transformational. So the importance of a liberal learning core, the importance of professional learning, the importance of learning to become a citizen and the values that drive that work, all of those together are what makes an education the most powerful, with experience being the thread that ties them all together. So real world experience and learning through that experience, all different kinds of experience, that's what makes it electric. It makes it a very, very powerful form of learning. And so what I see in Nazareth is all of that woven together. And that is not typical in institutions of higher education. Unfortunately, in many institutions, there's a lot of conflict among those different aims. And so you always feel like you're sacrificing one to emphasize another. And to find an institution that truly values all of that and that finds ways to creatively put all of that together, that speaks to what I believe to be fundamental in education, but also in the development of our society. And then I have to say the other thing that, I've known of Nazareth for a long time, and I've known of Daan, and I have known Daan in various ways for a long time. And that's the other thing that spoke to me, is that this is a place that has lived its mission in a very earnest way for a very long time, and that has had a leader that understands that and that never stops in leading that mission. And that's very powerful for me. So to be, to find a place where that kind of collegial commitment, is welcoming, that is very, very powerful. And I find that in Daan, I find that throughout the people that I have met at Nazareth. Very committed, very mission-centered, grounded people who will not stop to offer a kind of education that is so vitally important in our world, no matter the challenge. So that resilience that is just pouring forward at Nazareth right now, really, really important.
Actually, it fits right in with what Beth was just speaking about. I am a huge fan, and Nazareth is a huge proponent of experiential learning, of giving students the opportunity to take what they're learning in the classroom and apply it in the real world. And that has a lot of benefits. I mean, one is it helps students better understand the theory that they're learning in the classroom. But it also gives them the opportunity to look at the real world and say, it could be better. We can repair what's going on, and we can create a better future for the world. And by exposing students to the real life experiences, we really enhance their education on so many levels. So we're so committed to that a couple of years ago, we started what we call the SPARK program. I think if I remember, it stands for Students Pursuing Academic and Real World Knowledge. Somehow that comes out to SPARK. And what we want to encourage students in their summer months to do internships. And a large number of our students need to work in the summer. They need to, and a lot of them work in restaurants or in swim as lifeguards, or where they work outdoors, whatever. What we want to do is encourage them to work in an area that they think they might be interested in. And so we give every freshman and sophomore a $1,500 grant to enable them to do that in the summer when they're often not paid by these jobs, and earn some money. We also allow them to use it if they want to do some international trips. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of our students cannot afford the additional expense of flying to another country and living there for the summer. And a number of students have combined both. So, I could tell you so many stories about so many students. So one that pops up is a student who's going to graduate next year, Meredith Racy, who used her SPARK grant to go to Chile. She thought she might want to be a doctor, and she was able to work in a hospital there, during the mornings. In the afternoon, she actually taught English as a second language to people. And she was able to, during her 6 weeks, work in various areas of the hospital. And when she came back, she had discovered her passion. And her passion was she wanted to become a doctor. She wanted to go into obstetrics. And she got admitted, early admission, to a school of osteopathic medicine. And so when she graduates, she's going to live her dream. And I like to think that the Spark Grant enabled her to find that passion, find her dream, and now she can go ahead and live it. And that's just one example. I could multiply that literally 600 or 800 times because we've had so many students take advantage of the Spark Grants. I bet every college in the country has a career services office, and the way most of them run is in the student's junior, senior year. She goes to the career services office, they help her write a letter, they help her do her resume, they might help her find a job, and that's basically the role of career services. What we decided to do is really start that process at the beginning of college, begin in the freshman year, and use it as the process as an opportunity to help students like Meredith decide what her passion is. So we set up the center, we hired what we call our career coaches, and each student is assigned a career coach. And the role of the coach is to really help students think about what they want to do when they leave the college, not just their initial job. We're really not as much focused on that. We're talking about what do you want to do with your life? And it's not just what do you want to do with work, but what do you want to do? It gets back to the whole civic engagement issue, to make the world a better place. We like to say that at Nazareth, we encourage students to leave here not only to make a living, but to make a life. And our Center for Life's Work is really designed to get students to think about making a living as well as making a life. And we started in their freshman year.
It's such a powerful model. It really is. And to watch the growth over that time, it's remarkable what can happen when you make it a true developmental experience. It's remarkable. I'm excited about that. Daan, you have an incredible legacy, and I see that every day. I see and celebrate that, and I will continue to see and celebrate that. And my commitment is to keep the love that you have poured into Nazareth and that you clearly have for Nazareth, and the passion infused mission of the college, to keep that moving ever forward. One of the things that is very powerful to me about the founding of Nazareth is the emphasis on being progressive. What does progress mean? Progress means you're ever moving forward. Progress means that you are continually moving. Progress means that you are looking out into the world and understanding the role of education in that world, and that you're not timid about moving the education forward to be able to engage and support and create a better and better world. And that's what you've done in your leadership. So my commitment is to respect that legacy and to continue it, and to ensure that Nazareth continues to be progressive and progresses through a time that needs us. And I believe in that very, very strongly. And I will work as hard as you have through many, many years. I'm honored to do so. I will keep it going.
Thank you, Beth. I really appreciate that. The first thing I want to say is thank you. I learned many, many years ago that institutions don't change because of one person or even a small group of people. Institutional change requires the hard work of everyone in the community. And we've seen a lot of change in the last 15 years. And I think it would never, I know it would have never occurred but for the commitment of the faculty, the staff, the students, our trustees, our alums, our donors, our loyal donors. I mean, it really required the entire community to make the changes. You know, a lot of people will look around and see all the new buildings we built, and they're all beautiful and wonderful. But to me, the legacy is not the building, but what goes on inside the building. And so much is going on inside those buildings. And I just have to say thank you to the community. The other thing I would say, my other message is be hopeful. You know, this is a tough time for a lot of people, and tough time for the college. But again, I am so hopeful about the future. And you know, this isn't a love fest. We didn't practice this ahead of time. But I am so hopeful about the future with Beth's leadership. I really am, and I mean that seriously. And you know, a lot of times transitions, as I said at the beginning, are awkward and quite frankly, they could be uncomfortable for both the person leaving, the person coming in. I don't feel that at all. You know, we're going to get through this crisis. The pandemic is going to end, you know, it may take a couple years even before we get a vaccine, but it'll end. But Nazareth College will not. Nazareth College is going to move forward. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to provide the highest educational experience possible for our students, and it's going to continue to make a difference in the world around us. So, you know, my message is be hopeful. The future is bright.
Hear, hear.